Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Brief. Another 8 Israelis have now just tested positive for the coronavirus, bringing the total number of known cases up to 50 in Israel. And now the Israeli government has just announced drastic measures to protect the country from the disease, requiring every single person who has returned from abroad to go into quarantine.
אחרי ממש של דיונים מורכבים, קיבלנו החלטה. כל מי שיגיע לישראל מחו"ל ייכנס לבידוד של 14 יום. זו החלטה קשה, אבל היא חיונית כדי לשמור על בריאות הציבור, ובריאות הציבור קודמת לפני הכל. ההחלטה הזאת תהיה בתוקף לשבועיים, במקביל אנחנו מקבלים החלטות לשמור על כלכלת ישראל.
Non-Israeli citizens will be allowed to enter or stay in Israel for another 72 hours, but after that they'll be barred completely from staying in Israel unless they can prove that they have a place to be quarantined in the country properly for 14 days. And these measures are essentially placing Israel in isolation from the rest of the world and effectively shutting down tourism. And they're the most dramatic to be introduced by any nation in the world so far. There is good news, though, among the 50 Israelis who have been diagnosed with the coronavirus. The most serious case, an East Jerusalem resident who's suffering from acute pneumonia and high fever, has begun to stabilize. And the 38-year-old bus driver chauffeured a group of Greek tourists around the country who were later found to be infected with the disease. Coronavirus has infected more than 110,000 people across the world, and it's killed almost 4,000.
The ultimate goal is to have home tests, just the way you do for pregnancy or HIV, that people can test themselves. And when that happens, we can narrow down considerably we can separate more effectively and efficiently healthy people from sick people. This is good for health, and it's very good for our economies.
Blue and White Chairman Benny Gantz and Israel Beitenu Chairman Avigdor Lieberman are working to build a minority government, or a coalition with less than the 61 required mandates. And that means that it will therefore be reliant on outside support from the Joint Arab List, which until now both Gantz and Lieberman have ruled out. But they now say anything to prevent fourth elections and to get rid of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Not everyone's on board just yet, though. Blue and White MKs Tzvi Hauser and Yoaz Hendel are rejecting this proposition, and several other members of the faction are likewise opposed. But they've yet to join the rejection. While Blue and White officials are giving them an ultimatum: get in line or get out. Meanwhile, the Joint List is equally offended by the exclusion of one of its party leaders from negotiations. MK Metanis Shehada, who heads the Joint List's more extremist Balad party, was not invited. And anyway, he will likely refuse to recommend Gantz. But with only 12 of the Joint List's 15 mandates, and Hendel and Hauser on the fence, Gantz's chance of forming a government is slipping away. In fact, without them, the blocs fall back into a stalemate, making fourth elections all the more likely. At any rate, the nation's new legislators need to pick a side, and fast. President Rivlin has now officially scheduled his meetings with party leaders for their recommendations for prime minister, and they're set to begin at the start of next week. And with coronavirus in mind, the talks will also be short and confined to just one day apiece. In an incredible partnership program, a pair of NFL football players have just been given a crash course in what it means to be an IDF soldier. And while these two athletes are at the top of their game, it turns out that there's always more to learn. Washington Redskins running back Adrian Peterson and cornerback Josh Norman, who just reportedly signed with the Buffalo Bills, are now returning from Israel after a very unique experience. The pair, who played together for 2 years, first arrived in Israel as participants in the International First Robotics Competition, and in partnership with RoboActive 2069, an Israeli high school organization. But after the competition, they also participated in training exercises with the IDF, running obstacle courses with soldiers, taking lessons in Krav Maga, and even receiving military briefs on the threats against Israel. So how was it? Well, Norman says that it's amazing to get in there and train with the IDF because they're at the top of their game of being in combat, and Peterson is amazed by the soldiers' mental toughness and focus. As for the exercise that stood out the most, the players say running up a hill with 40-pound vests, which apparently feels like running in sand, tops the list. Now finally, while this was Peterson's first visit, Norman is no stranger to the Holy Land. He's visited 3 or 4 times already, wears a chai or life necklace, and is even considering moving here. And of course, both he and Peterson say they'd return to continue their philanthropy too. That's all for now, but for more news from Israel, remember to like ILTV on Facebook and on Instagram, and to subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.